And so we have to know that as we are navigating our own storms, as we are going through things that we would not choose for ourselves, as we are going through things that might be a little bit more frightening than we ever had anticipated, this is the manner through which God is redirecting our path. Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Melody and I make faith-based content here on YouTube. I post new videos every single Monday. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely be sure and subscribe. I would love to have you join the family. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about the delays, the detours, and the redirections that we are guaranteed to experience in our walk with God. Now the thing about these specific three, these big three, right? The detours, the delays, and the redirections, is that oftentimes when we are going through them, we do not realize that that is what God is up to. And so my hope is, as we insert ourselves into the text, and specifically today we're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 14 as well as Mark chapter 6. And again, as we insert ourselves into the text, we're going to be able to see how God is working things together, what the delays can look like, what redirections can look like, what they can feel like, and also where we can see the goodness of God in the midst of it all, where God is in the midst of it all. Now, something that you need to know about today's topic, as well as the historical context I will be sharing, as well as the scriptural insight I will be sharing, is that it is all coming straight from my pastor, okay? This man teaches the text so beautifully each and every Sunday, and I am truly inspired by the way that he simply presents the text, shows us what the text means, and allows the word to encourage us. Not his stories, not even his perspective, not even his takeaways, but he's just letting the text encourage us. And so I'm hoping that as I share what he shared, that you also are inspired simply by the text. Now, I'm also going to have the sermon that these points are coming from linked down below. I cannot recommend it enough that you check it out, sis. Pastor Philip Anthony Mitchell. Now, one more thing before we dive into it, as we are talking about the text, understanding the word of God, I feel like this segues perfectly into the sponsor for today's video, Hillsdale College. Now, you guys already know I am a huge fan of Hillsdale College. They offer over 40 online free courses on the topics that we actually want to know more about. I've already gone through their course on the book of Genesis. I'm currently going through their course on the book of Exodus, and it is truly phenomenal. So on top of these online courses being 100% free, which I do just want to call out, it is not just free with my link, it is not just free for a limited time. Sis, these resources online are always 100% free, and it is truly giving free Bible college, and I am so grateful for it. I love being able to share these types of resources with you guys because it is helping me create videos like this and learn more about this living, breathing word, and I know that it also is going to bless you in your walk with the Lord. So if you're wanting to join me and taking the course on the book of Exodus, I'm going to have a link down below for you. It's going to be hillsdale.edu/melody. You can register for free and get started today, hillsdale.edu/melody. So thank you one more time to Hillsdale College for partnering with me on this portion of the video. Now, with all of this in mind, let's go ahead and jump into our text today. Again, it's going to be Matthew chapter 14 as well as Mark chapter 6. And as we read and unpack this text, we then are going to pull out our takeaways and truths that we can hold into our hearts as we are navigating our own redirections, delays, and detours. So let's start with a little rapid fire historical context so we have full understanding of what kind of text and what's going on before we insert ourselves into this story. So the first thing that we need to know is Jesus has just finished preaching to 5,000 people and then feeding these 5,000 people as well. The disciples also just witnessed Jesus feed these 5,000 people through the miracle of multiplication, right? Jesus took some bread, he took some fish, he multiplied it, and then he fed everyone. And his disciples were tasked with passing out this food. So they just got to witness this amazing miracle with their own two eyes. And then lastly, we have to know as well a little bit about the Gospels, because two of the books of the Bible we're focusing on today come from the Gospels. So the Gospels are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and these all are telling the story of Jesus's ministry from a different perspective, from their own perspective. So with this in mind, we have to know that each book of the Gospel includes slightly different information that the other account might not. So with all of that in mind, we're gonna go ahead and jump into this text. I'm gonna go ahead and pop it up on the screen, Matthew chapter 14, verse 22 through 25. And it reads, "Immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. after dismissing the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. Well into the night, he was there alone. Meanwhile, the boat was already some distance from land, battered by waves because the wind was against them. Jesus came towards them walking on the sea very early in the morning. Now, when it comes to this set of scripture, I'm sure you are familiar with it in one way, shape, or form. But before we start unpacking, I need us to go down to verse 34. I'm gonna go ahead and pop it up on the screen. This is very key when it comes to us understanding the redirection that was occurring in this storm. So I'm gonna go ahead again, pop it up on the screen, and let's read it together. Verse 34 says, when they had crossed over, meaning they made it through that storm, they came to the shore of Gennesaret. And so that is really important, sis, that we have this landmark of where they ended up. They got into this boat. Jesus sent them into this boat, into the storm, which is something that we're going to talk about. And they made it across the sea into Gennesaret. Now, something that we are going to go to Mark to understand is where were they intending to go? As they got into this boat after Jesus had just preached this sermon and fed 5,000 people, where did they think they were going? Where were they intending and wanting to go? And this is where we can jump over into another book of the gospel in Mark. So Mark chapter 6, verse 45, he gives us this little detail of where the disciples were intending to go when they got into that boat before they ran into the storm. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop this up on the screen so we can read it together. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to Bethsaida while he dismissed the crowd. Okay, sis, I'm on fire. I'm excited to unpack this. When my pastor broke down where they were intending to go and where they ended up, I had never in my life thought to put this information together, to go between the different gospels, to see these different accounts and see the different details that each writer included. So let's go ahead and start pulling out some truths about this redirection that we just witnessed firsthand here in Matthew as well as Mark. So the first truth and the first takeaway that we have from the text today is the fact that God's redirection, his divine redirection, often looks like a storm. Now let's think about it from the disciples' point of view. Jesus put them in this boat and sent them out into the water. They decided they are going to go to Bethsaida. As they are on their route to Bethsaida, that is when the wind comes and the rain comes. And we can see in verse 23, I believe, it states that waves were coming up and battering the sides of this boat. The storm was not fun. The storm was not something that they would have chosen for themselves. The storm probably had them second guessing their decision to get into that boat to begin with. The storm probably also was very frightening. Yet still, that is the way that Jesus redirected their path to go from Bethsaida to Gennesaret. And again, as they get to Gennesaret, that is when a healing revival breaks out. And so we have to know that as we are navigating our own storms, as we are going through things that we would not choose for ourselves, as we are going through things that might be a little bit more frightening than we ever had anticipated, as we are going through things that might be more intense, might be more challenging than we ever would have chosen for ourselves, that this is the manner through which God is redirecting our path, reordering our steps to get us to the place where he truly wants us to be. And now this leads me to our second takeaway that I think also is equally as important here, is we have to note that Jesus sent the disciples into this storm. Jesus knew as they got into this boat that they were going to encounter this storm. And so sometimes the storms in our lives are ones that God also has sent us into. Oftentimes we can believe and feel like if we run into a storm, some opposition, some challenge that is just a little bit too much for us, then this must have been a mistake. We must have made a left turn when we should have gone right. We did something wrong. But sis, we can see here in the text, Jesus sent them into this storm. And so we have to know, as we are living lives unto the Lord, as we are wanting to be in alignment with his will and his plan, sometimes his will and his plan is to send a storm into our lives. And so we have to see the sovereignness of the Lord in that. We have to see that he has a plan in the storm despite how it may feel. Because at the end of the day, the beautiful part about this and what we also can see in the text is that the storm might lead us to places that we would have never chosen for ourselves, but are the exact places where we should be, where God wants us to be, that are in alignment with his will and his plan and his timing. But if we had the choice, we probably would have never gone over there because we were so gung-ho on going in one direction. So the next time we are going through a divine redirection where the Lord is changing our path, right? Truly reordering our steps in real time, and it is a storm through which he is redirecting us, I want us to remember that he is going to get us to a place that we might not have chosen for ourselves, but it is the place where he wants us to be. And that leads me to our final takeaway today, Matthew chapter 14, verse 25. As they were in the midst of their storm, as they were experiencing the reality of being divinely redirected, Jesus met them there. And so we also can expect to meet Jesus in the midst of the storm and in the midst of the redirection. Jesus literally walked out on water to them there. That is the lens through which he went to get to his disciples, to comfort them, to make sure that they were okay. And that again is also what we are going to experience as we are navigating through the redirections, the delays, and the detours that are coming through the storm. Just look for God's hand, look for his comfort, look for the small ways that he is encouraging you, look for his presence, and sis, I guarantee you will find it. He is a good father. He will never abandon us, specifically in a storm, and especially in a storm that he sent us into and is allowing in our lives. So that's something that we need to keep in mind, that goodness of God, it is always present and is always available for us to cling onto in the midst of these stormy redirections. So sis, I don't know who this is for, but if you are going through a storm, I encourage you to look at it from a different perspective. If you've been so focused on thinking that you did something wrong, that you must have made a wrong turn at some point, that you must have heard God wrong, I encourage you to explore with the Lord the idea that maybe it is him who has sent you into this place. Maybe it is him who is redirecting your steps. Maybe in this moment, in the midst of the storm, you are experiencing a divine redirection. All right, sis, that is going to be it for me. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. And one more time, I want to thank Hillsdale College for partnering with me on today's video. Again, I will have a link down in the description box where you can register and get started for free taking their online courses. Now, of course, it is your turn. So in the comments below, I would love to know, what is one thing that you have learned about God through your own delay, detour, or redirection? I think it is going to be so incredibly encouraging for us to recall, not only for ourselves, but for others, how God has seen us through some of these experiences. So definitely be sure to take a second, drop your response, and then scroll on through as well. As always, I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video. Peace.